Let's talk about the business of the day as it relates to theater with your hosts, Darnell Radford and Mitch Weiss. This is The Business of Theater, a working title. Mitch, I know we're looking for a working title, but we cannot name the podcast The Business of Theater. In 2024, we'll all be kings.
Nah, you're right. We can't. Spam-a-lot notwithstanding.
I could have said, we could say we'll all be knights.
Knights. There you go. There you go.
Welcome to The Business of Theater, a working title. I am Darnell Radford.
I'm Mitch Weiss, and Darnell, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Happy New Year. And let's get down to business.
Yeah, it better be a better year, right? Theater, everything, please.
Yeah, I figured we would take some of this time to kind of look optimistically into 2024. But at first, I wanted to talk about an article you sent about whether musicals have a sell-by date. And it was interesting timing that came out, because I think at the time that you sent it, I was still processing the movie musical that is The Color Purple.
Right.
And,
To be clear, I have not seen it, just so our audience knows you have, and I have not yet seen it.
Mitch is from the ilk that waits for it to stream, unfortunately.
No. It needs to not be a crowded weekend in a movie theater. It's funny. I will go to a crowded Broadway or off-Broadway theater, but I don't like sitting in movie theaters with popcorn, soda, spills, and lots of children screaming and running around sometimes. So,
some people like their food hot out of the oven.
Yeah,
some
there you go.
Tepid, sitting on the table for a couple of days.
I even waited 6 years before seeing Phantom of the Opera. I'm just not someone who jumps on. It's not a fad per se, but I look at it that way. I will wait, listen to people's comments, and eventually see good things.
Well, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I realized unconsciously that I was pursuing movies much like I pursue theater, as in, if I can go to opening night or opening weekend, which is, because of schedules, it tends to be more functional, I will try that. And so that's just me, because I don't know. I feel like later on, if it's a week or two later, I'm often going to say, perhaps I'll just wait for it to, come into one of the streaming mediums and then just watch it from the comfort of my home.
And I do understand that some movies are better seen on a big screen. I get that. And I will eventually try to see what I should see in the right place. But I'm already thinking 2 weeks from now, will I have been upset that I wasn't there on the first weekend? No, I won't.
I don't. I think you'll be all right. When you see it, I'll be interested to know what you think about it. But what I will say is, also for this article, where you pose the question, do some musicals have a sell-by date? Perhaps in the last iteration of the musical, yes. And it was interesting, as I read through that article, the comments were the most interesting, where they were essentially doing what directors do, where they find other meaning to something that may be canon, and speak to its relevance and how that is still a valid conversation to have today. And so I think that yes, I some things. I don't know. I there have been many conversations over the years, especially with artists.
I think we need to let everyone in on the comments and the idea. For example, and let's get very specific. Carousel has almost a rape, and it's a Rogers and Hammerstein. They discuss it. Nobody quote unquote gets away with it. If you consider death is the punishment, or not getting into heaven. Perhaps, but it still happens. So, under our new kind of PC world, is that something that, as a musical, we need to ever see again? I will take that another step. I was once told by an actress, we were doing an original, not very good, but an original musical. This is about 30 years ago. And one of the songs dealt with the Civil War. That meant that the black actors in that particular musical, for that scene, two of them had to play slaves in the scene, even though there was no violence in that scene. And the comment from the black actress to me afterwards is, I don't need to ever play these parts again. If I had known that was part of this musical, I might have turned it down. And it wasn't like we were paying her a fortune to do it anyway. These are interesting comments. Not that we want everything PC and everything whitewashed, so to speak, but it does come down to how we deal with these topics.
Yeah.
And that, I would always argue that a story is a story. What are you trying to say with it? So if there is violence in a musical, or there's some violence in King and I, do you leave out the whipping? Do you leave out the announcement that so-and-so has been murdered, while trying to escape? Right?
I mean, do you leave out the whipping in Jesus Christ Superstar?
Right, exactly. So why it's a difficult topic. And then the question comes again, how do you portray it? And maybe that's where the director comes in. How do we, over time, change what something means to be to recognize what we have learned about our society over time? Obviously none of us have the answer. Company, Sondheim was known. He said, you have a new idea. It's not that I don't want to hear it. I don't want anything to happen to my show, but I need to approve what idea you have so that you're not destroying or presenting me in a wrong light.
Yeah.
So, but when you're dead, I know the Rogers and Hammerstein Foundation, they up until about 5 years ago, they were strict. You were not allowed to change one lyric in any song, or they would shut you down if they found out about it. And that, with the Dramatists Guild, they have rules that say, hey, you have to get permission with every change from the original author. You can't do that if they're dead.
Well, I understand. I understand the conversation on both sides, but I feel like the piece is what it is. And if you're going to present it, you have to present it in that context. It is what it is. And perhaps I feel like if it's something that is like, this is a dated piece, but the reason we're doing this is because the conversation around this piece is relevant. you know, perhaps this gives you an opportunity to elevate the conversation around this piece as well as presenting the piece itself. Maybe this isn't something that you would do on Broadway per se. However, when you take I know that other productions have done this, but if you take Fat Ham, for example, Fat Ham had many conversations about the piece itself
Mm-hmm.
after the post show discussions, and so there was this whole element of education. It was extra, you know.
But doesn't that then beg the question on anything that has controversy in it, if that's the right word? Should
Mhm.
you not have a post-show discussion every performance? Is that what we are
I
going
mean,
after?
technically, yes. I feel like this is why we can't just rest on Broadway doing the job for us. This is why regional theater exists, because Broadway arguably doesn't have the time to unpack this per se, whereas like a company, a regional theater or even a community theater has an opportunity to engage with the community in a more nuanced way, I would say. I don't know. I think that is sort of a benefit of being a regional arts presenter. I think being
Although,
able to have those
right, but
conversations.
Broadway does have post-show discussions. They can't do them often because it costs a
Yeah.
lot of money to
Hmm.
keep the stagehands and the
but that's
musicians.
but that's what I mean.
Yeah,
And I feel like I feel like currently I am patting Wilma Theater on the back, but I'm gonna say, because Wilma Theater is a producer of Fat Ham, when Wilma Theater renovated their lobby, they the mindset was that they wanted to create a space where people could congregate and have conversation. So there's a cafe in the lobby, and often their shows will end with a conversation in the lobby. So okay, maybe we do have to get our production team, our team has to do their end of show process,
right.
but while that's happening, you can go out into the lobby and speak with representatives of the show and have a more in-depth conversation about what you just saw. And I think that is a great addition.
I agree. The question is, should the writer
Hmm.
be relying on a theater company to do that work, or should there be something in the show?
No, I think the piece is the piece. A an author doesn't an author doesn't write a novel and then write a supplemental uh, piece
Right.
to complement the novel. Like, it is what it is, and then you're sort of left to process it. And they will have interviews where they can talk more in depth about it, but it's meant to stand. The art is meant to stand alone in
Mm-hmm.
one on the one hand, but we have the opportunity to dig deeper, and we should. If you're
I
going to
agree.
tackle
I
if you're
agree.
going to tackle a piece that is dated and feels like it's not, like, what is the urgency here? You kind of have to explain yourself.
Mm-hmm.
What is the urgency of bringing this to the stage now? And perhaps those conversations are going to be meaningful. Now, I know that at the same time, we're in this mindset where people are sort of like, some people are interested in the talk back, some people are over them. It is what it is, but sometimes you don't know where everybody's coming from. So somebody may have come from out of town, they've got dinner reservations
Mm-hmm.
in an hour, so they've got time to kill. They could stay and have a conversation about
Well,
this
and
piece,
so yeah, the
we
opposite,
also
or
we
the
also
opposite.
or they have to go, yeah.
Yeah.
But we also know that people will engage in conversations in the lobby outside the theater, on their walk home, on their ride home. And since people are already having those conversations,
Well,
wouldn't it be great to have
yeah,
conversations with the
Darnell,
people
I think
who spend a lot of time to working on
I
them?
think for so many of us, one of the exciting things about seeing theater is that I leave an impactful show, and I will talk about it with people for days.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and
Absolutely.
certainly you go out, you get something to eat afterwards, you talk about it. That good, bad, or indifferent, you talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
The issue is that there are people who don't.
Yeah.
And that for the rest of us, we don't necessarily, the talkbacks are nice. And really, I think they're for those of us who are interested. My understanding of some audience members that I know, they just want to get out of the theater. And they're the ones who need to listen to the talkback. And that's my feeling. And so look, theater is fantastic. The impactful stuff sits in your brain. We learn about society. We learn good, bad, and indifferent. And some shows speak to some people and not others. All of that's fine. The question that the article brought up is if this is a show from the 1930s or 40s, and it has things that would be considered rude or insulting or insensitive. I think that's the key word. For example, if a show, and I can't think of it right now, but if a show were dealing with handicapped people and making fun of them, it used to be very funny to watch people fall. It may be very insensitive if it's just for a joke that they fell. So what do we
also using the term handicap,
right? Exactly.
and not whatever the currently accepted term is.
Correct. So the question the article brought up for me is: does a director, a producer, or even an actor have rights to say the rest of the show is worth it? Let's fix this. And if the playwright is dead, we have not, technically under union rules, we do not have the right to make any changes to a script without the playwright's written permission. That is a rule. That's the law. So now, and it used to be enforced, like Rodgers and Hammerstein, that organization, oh my God, they sent people to high schools to make sure they didn't cut a song. For example, in South Pacific, the song You've Got to Be Carefully Taught, there have been high schools in the Midwest that cut it from the show. And Rodgers and Hammerstein organization shut those productions down. They did. They just said you can't do it.
Excuse me, Virginia? Hi, yeah. My friends call me Ginny. You can call me Ginny. Listen, Virginia, I'm going to need you to stick to the script.
Yep.
Me and my 7 lawyers who we did buy tickets. We want to support theater. We want to support the arts. We're going to need you to stick to that script. Can you imagine?
I can.
It just reminds me of like the episodes of The Simpsons where the 7 lawyers would come in.
Yeah.
From Disney. It was always from Disney, but now Disney owns The Simpsons.
Yeah. And that's probably why they bought it.
Yeah. But one of the things I guess I've never been a purist,
We've noticed.
I've never been a purist.
That was a joke. Okay, just so you got it. Just so you.
Yeah.
Okay.
I got it.
Okay.
I got it. I'm just trying to continue. Okay.
Yeah.
So I've never been so. I am open to interpretation, and so I learned early on in when I was an adjudicator, when I was there as a nominator or voter in the theater, that I had to open my mind, and I couldn't hold so tightly to these things, because I'm going to miss out on whatever intentionality was here, and I may walk away and not have a full idea of the message that was trying to be delivered. And I also realized that the more conversation I have, the more evolved my overall perception of the experience becomes. And so I had to realize that, okay, I would see social media allows too many people to comment when they should just keep their mouths shut. I'm just saying. But like, somebody will always say like, "Oh, the book was so much better." Well, the book was 700 pages,
Mhm.
and it wasn't a musical. And so, but that book had to exist in order for this musical to, uh, you know, come into being. And so, what they're doing is they're taking the elements that either spoke to them or spoke to the direction that they want to focus on, or what have you, and they decided to elevate that. Like, I'll think about, like, and think about a movie like Beetlejuice. Beetlejuice the movie is not the same as Beetlejuice the musical,
Right.
where this is
Absolutely.
about uh, you know um, the Matlins, who take
Right.
they're in their new house, and they get killed and end up haunting their own house, and so on. Whereas the musical is about, yeah, all that happened. But really, what I want you to focus on is Beetlejuice and his relationship to their to Lydia.
And
It's like,
interesting, exactly to what you're saying. The biggest criticism for the current production of Back to the Future, the musical on Broadway, is that it is exactly the line. It's exactly
the
what the
movie
movie was. Therefore, why do you need to see it?
with a few new songs.
And a phenomenal trick car, and that's
Mm.
it. So now and yet it's doing
Yeah,
business.
yes, but this is where the supplemental conversation, uh, allows for more justification. Like, we know that there is a strong resistance of ever letting the Back to the Future trilogy become anything more than that.
Mm-hmm.
And so we know that. So walking in here, we're just seeing a musical version
Yeah, but just as with Beetlejuice, I would have thought
of the first film.
I would have thought that Beetlejuice would have been exactly what the movie was set to music, and
Mm.
yet I was so pleasantly surprised.
Yeah.
So because there's a different additional humor. The lyrics are clever. The characters have been flushed out in a slightly different way. It's still
Mhm.
the basic story, which
Yeah.
is and it is basic characters. But my biggest example is the award-winning movie Cabaret. Compared to the award-winning Broadway musical, we're in two different
Mhm.
mediums.
Yeah.
And what they did is they took a difficult Broadway script and they totally rewrote it.
Mm.
Totally. Now, is there still the cabaret singer and the MC, the Joel Grey character? Yes. Is there still the English writer? Yes. Beyond that, that's it. The play is about the man, the English writer. The the cabaret singer is a featured character
Mhm.
in the story. It's not about
Yeah.
her. The
Yeah.
movie is about her.
Mhm.
And although they kept, most of the songs, all of the supporting characters are completely changed. There are these two older Jewish couple in the Broadway musical, and they are a heartthrob. I mean, you tear up for them. They
Mm.
don't exist in the movie at all.
Mm.
The rich baroness replaces them. So it's a completely different script, and yet both of them work on their own terms, and they're similar enough for them to still be called cabaret.
Yeah.
The question becomes for me, how do we balance the two? Respectful to the author because we're using that storyline because we liked it. And we thought it had something to say. But if you don't allow a director and an actor and a producer to reinterpret it, and let's go back a step. What if we see Fiddler on the Roof in 1963, and then what changes would we make in 2023? Yeah. Well, now we're 24. I don't know that it needs to, but I do know I'm not a big fan of the movie. I thought it kind of fell flat compared to the Broadway show. Notice no one has tried to make a movie out of Pippin, right? So I question whether or not anyone thinks there's something there that's worth telling.
Not yet.
Well, not yet. Right?
There's a listener right now going, challenge accepted.
And that would be great. That would be great.
Send us the draft. We'd love to read it.
But my guess is it would be very... Well, look, Wicked. Wicked is turning into a 2-part musical movie. Now, they're adding new songs. It's going to be a lot longer than the Broadway musical. I don't know what they're doing to it. So, again, somebody said, you bought the rights, you know the basic story, and here's the basic musical. Now go. The only big difference is the writers are still alive, so they can participate. I think that's important. But when you're dealing with a Rodgers and Hammerstein or Gershwin, think of Showboat. I mean, what an interesting plot that is. And it has all different ramifications now than it did when it was first written.
Yeah.
And so, again, how do you interpret it? Whose job is it to interpret it? And who gets to say, oh, no, you can't?
And also about Wicked, Wicked, the book, is a very lengthy book, but it is one of 4 books.
Right, exactly.
that really build out the world that was imagined by Frank Baum.
Yeah, and
and there's so much story to tell, and it's all not even in that musical. Yeah. And so it'll be interesting to see what it. But again, like I said, if it's not like we're watching, it's not like when we saw the taping of Hamilton or Rent or any other musical that was, we are just turning several cameras onto the stage. We're reimagining this and building from that from the base text.
All right, but let me take the discussion one step in another direction. I have a habit whenever I'm referring to something that I don't ever need to see again, and this isn't fair, so I'm already apologizing. I use Hello, Dolly. Only because it's a basic story about a widow, and she's going to find a husband who has money, and that her dead husband approves. That is the entire plot. This is not important. It's The Matchmaker. It's based on a book and a story called The Matchmaker. And this is not earth-shattering news, which is why there's not much earth-shattering that happens in the musical. So having seen it twice on Broadway, beautifully done with amazing casts, and then having seen a high school production and a college production, and the movie, I don't ever need to see that show again unless somebody is going to reinterpret it and give me something to think about. I don't need the good memories. And excuse me, unless they're free, right? I don't need to spend money on that, right? Look at Merrily, We Roll Along. The reason it seems to be doing so well is because we're being told. Now, you've seen it. I haven't. I'm seeing it in April. But we're being told, besides that it has a star-studded cast with Daniel Radcliffe, that the director, with Stephen Sondheim's permission, has found a way to make a flop musical work. And that's what the critics have written. I'm intrigued to see that, even though I saw the original and I was bored by it. So I am interested if this one will not bore me.
Yeah.
Right? So that's worth going back. However, how much money am I willing to spend to see a show I didn't like in the first place? Right? And that's... I'll always have to balance these things. You know, I don't have the money flowing out of my ears that I can just spend $200 on a theater ticket, or even $45 in the last row. You know. Anyway, I digress, don't I? But so Hello Dolly is my example I keep using, and nothing is. It's a delightful show. Don't get me wrong. It's just after you've seen something. You know, I've directed Carousel. I've seen it, and I've seen it, and I've seen it, and I've seen it, and who cares anymore? Right? And if I really have to, I can turn on TCM and watch the movie if I really just want to fall asleep in the middle of it. That's Mitch's interpretation.
I also feel like, you know, when someone says, what did you say? This is something I don't need to see.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like people say that, you know, just so they can jab in front of whoever, and people can go, ooh, you know, like it's like, okay, you don't need to see it, but guess what? They weren't trying to reach you anyway.
That's
so
right. Well,
it doesn't matter.
I think originally they were, and they did. I thoroughly enjoyed the first 2 times I saw it.
I just mean if you decide that they are making a new version of this and you don't need to see it, that's fine.
Yeah, then I just don't go.
But somebody who doesn't know anything about it, or somebody who does and says, you know what, I am interested to see what they do, or I like the people involved, or there's so many reasons to end up coming in, and so they might check it out to see, you know, to just see if what they thought was going to happen happens, so that they can say, I told you this was going to happen.
All valid. What you're saying is totally valid. I think
there are just so many reasons, and I feel like if we are going to be so purist about the work that has been presented for the first time, then why does the drama bookshop exist? Why do we go in there to buy those scripts and wait for like somebody in our area to produce those shows and go see them? Because we love them. You know, like everybody who's obsessed with Rent, who like all of our Rent heads, will go see Rent. It does not matter who's in it anymore. You know, they will still talk about like when they had a great time, but they're just hoping that the producers and the director put together a great ensemble so that they can enjoy this as much as they've enjoyed it.
And the thing I ask for, which is coming out of our discussion today, is the director and the cast. It's not just that they're talented. I'd love to see something that surprises me and says, something new to take from this show. And therefore, going back to, do we ever need to see these things again? Well, maybe, though, if we allow them to be updated is the wrong word, adjusted, redefined at moments, to have it brought into, what if it were brand new in 2024? That, to me, if a director comes at it saying, well, Rent, right, I got it. I get why everyone goes crazy, But what if it were just coming out today? What would make it really special? And it may just be the same show. But I wonder if they can find moments, if they can find a way to stage it, if they can find, whether it's a minimal set or whether it's a completely fancy technological set, something that just says, I went back and I got something more from it.
Yeah.
That to me says the play or musical is alive. And I know Sondheim used that word. He said his work needs to stay alive. So if we have Rodgers and Hammerstein, Rodgers and Hart, Gershwin, on and on and on, what allows Carousel to live in 2024? That's the kind of show I'm interested in. I'm not everybody's audience. I didn't, my 18-year-old niece, she might just like to see it the first time any way it is, if it's with a good cast. Right?
You've just justified the benefits of a theater education.
Yes.
It's like, if you don't understand the history, the foundation of these things, like, when you decide to take them on, and when you decide to envision them or bring them to life, like, you're taking all of that with you.
But here's part of the blessing. You less so than me because of your age, but when I think of the thousands of shows, and I've kept track, thousands of productions that I've seen over my life, it just makes me smile. I don't care how many of them were crap. I got something from all of them. I learned about our culture, our society, about people and how they interact with each other. And sometimes I just had fun. Right? I mean,
yes.
you see the play that goes wrong. I mean, give me a break. I can roll in the aisles and it doesn't have to have a reason for me to see it,
Just wonderful. Just they need to secure a theater and produce all of them.
Yeah. Well, it's still playing in New York. It's still here.
Yes. It does bring me so much joy. It's like, I don't know if I could see it like every week, but I really enjoy that, and I love telling people about it and how everything's in complete shambles by the end of the play, but you are so entertained and you got the point. The point across.
By the way, in 2024, we're expecting The Mousetrap from London in New York. First time ever. So here, and to me, what's interesting is how the awards deal with something like this. Here's the longest running play in history that's been sitting in London, a mystery by Agatha Christie that for some reason nobody does spoiler alerts on, right? And you can read the book, you can see the play and tell somebody else. It's still running. I think it's 70 years, 75 years. And for the first time, they're going to bring it to New York. And I don't care how old it is. I want to see it.
Yeah.
Because it's history. And plus, I gather people still like it. And certainly if I go to London, I will see it there. I've skipped it the last 3 times I was in London because I had other things to do. I was working. But this is great stuff, on the other hand, for me, it's interesting. Aspects of Love, the Andrew Lloyd Webber musical that just reopened in London in 2023, got awful reviews. What is this about? Why did he even write it, is what some of them said. So, the idea is, should somebody have said, Andrew Lloyd Webber, you're still alive, we're going to reinvent this show and try to give it a reason to exist rather than just put it on again? See, I mean, it's so many questions here, but I don't know if Andrew Lloyd Webber said, no, you can't make changes, what are they going to do? Right? It's
Yeah.
and so that it's a big question. Do we ever need to see it again if that's everybody's interpretation? Maybe.
Well, and there's something a little elitist about that statement alone. Do we ever need to see it again? Did I ever see it to begin with?
Right. But the we.
Yes.
My question is being hypothetical, not per.
Oh
Yeah.
no, and I'm not like jabbing you, but I'm saying
That's all
like
right.
when we express that statement, we're assuming that everyone saw it, and so we don't need to see it again. And really, we're projecting.
Yeah.
I don't need to see it again.
Well,
So it's not a.
that's really what my statement should always be. Like with
Yeah.
Carousel Hello Dolly, I don't ever need to see it again. But
Yeah.
I would if I heard that somebody was adding something to it, that there's more in the collaboration that makes it fresh, because it's still good material.
Yeah. I mean, you could say the same thing about, like, well, I mean, it's more prevalent for films, but I like sequels. It's like, do we need to live in this world more? And kind of, yes. If we love those characters and we want to see what else they do, yes, that's how TV series are created. We want to see more of these people.
But interesting, all the Vin Diesel movies, the reason why they seem to all be hits is because the individual movie has so much action and so many things that you haven't seen in a previous movie. It really is, you're right, you're going back to live in that world again, but the story is different.
Yeah.
So that's the difference. If, there isn't a Carousel Part 2.
Yeah.
Right? If we had a sequel, I might go see that.
Carousel Part 2. The carousel's broken. How do we bring this carousel to life again? It's the whole it's the whole sequel.
Well, by the way, the Fantastics, which used to be the longest running musical in New York, in this little 100-seat theater down in the Village, Act 1 is the Fantastics Part 1, and Act 2 is a completely different story, which is what makes the whole thing work. Act 1, it ends, they overcome their father's objections to their marriage, and they get married, and everyone's happy. Well, how do you get into Act 2 then? Act 2 starts with, guess what? The marriage wasn't so good. And now we start a whole different storyline and a whole different reason to watch the show. So in a sense, they put Part 1 and Part 2 together and created a wonderful musical. Which, by the way, has a rape sequence in it. And it's called the rape sequence. That's an interesting problem these days.
Yeah.
And it's a dance. It's done with dance. But how do we interpret that now? I don't have the answer. I'd be intrigued if someone tries it to see what they do with it, or if they just ignore it and say, hey, it's the original material.
Well, it's also, let's see, it's 1776, the musical.
All right.
I'm drawing a blank on the full name of the song, and I will find it in a second. Molasses to Rum.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like that was reimagined by this latest revival of 1776, and we're sitting there saying like, this is beautiful and also kind of terrible,
right?
And it was but it's like, yes, to see how would you interpret this now? I mean, how would you tell this story?
And these interpretations are allowed to fail. It's not, so are shows, obviously.
Yeah.
So the part of that initial question, do we need to see these things, is if we've seen it beautifully done, certainly like movies when they remake them. I mean, Miracle on 34th Street, give me a break. They did not need to remake that movie. It was the television version was not very good. But the original, because the original's classic, right? Leave it alone at some point. That's Mitch talking, my interpretation. Same thing that happens here is that I don't mind if you take a show and you make it as they did with 1776, all women, which of course has an absurdist perspective, therefore, since we're talking about a history play.
Mm-hmm.
Well, who cares? It makes me look at it differently, right? And therefore, I went in there, and whether it worked or it didn't work, whether it was worthwhile or it didn't. I mean, Hamilton, the ignoring of the skin color of the actors didn't matter. In fact, it added to it by the fact that we had a new perspective. Making a show all female with the same characters, how does that work? Does that work for you? What did we do with it? So the question would still be, did the director whose idea it was, did she succeed? I got what she was trying to do, and there are moments in that production that are stellar.
Yeah.
And so, but overall, does it work? I don't know. I don't have a negative or a positive on that. I was glad I saw it. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But I would not have gone back to see a regular production of 1776. I saw the original. I didn't like that. Then I saw the movie. I liked it even less. That was me. It's my taste.
I produced a sing-along version of 1776
Oh, wow.
for quite a few years. And, so I was interested to see what, how this would resonate. How this version would resonate. And plus, we knew people in the show.
Right.
And so we wanted to see them as well. I don't know. I feel like sometimes when you're connected to it, you're just like, let's see what they do. So besides the Mousetrap, is there anything else you're looking forward to in 2024?
Yeah, I definitely am seeing Merrily We Roll Along. I mean, it's already there. I'm already have tickets for Hell's Kitchen, the Alicia Keys musical. I have mixed feelings about. I'm going in with lower expectations so that hopefully I will just be really impressed. I've read a lot of things about the off-Broadway rendition, and from what I read, there are things that need to be adjusted, and I'm hoping they work on it between now and when it begins in March. I think previews begin in March, and I will see it in April as it gets towards opening night, so I see a finished production. And even if it's not perfect, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of what else I know is coming, and there are a couple of plays. I'm looking at what new musicals, Merrily is a revival. So what new musicals will have opened on Broadway? There's Hell's Kitchen, Shucked. No, Shucked was last year.
Yeah.
Yeah, so since then, there are, I think, only 3, and I'm trying to remember the other 2.
That are new?
That are new. Now, yeah, there's, we have a lot of revivals. That's
yes. Yeah.
Which I understand. Coming out of a pandemic, you want fun things and blah, blah, blah. And that's what they gave their audiences.
Yeah.
Here Lies Love was new. Or was that last year also?
That was last year, yeah.
Wow. What's new? Then what is new?
Well, there is a musical adaptation of Smash coming.
Not in 24, not before the Tonys.
Well, I don't know. It is on well, it hasn't been announced yet,
Okay.
but it is in the works.
Okay.
Uh it it, it well, the news says that it will open on Broadway in the 2024-25 season.
Yeah, that's after the Tonys.
Okay.
Yeah. So we're just, which is a very smart business move for Hell's Kitchen. I will, again, history. In 1967, only 3 musicals opened on, new musicals opened on Broadway. They couldn't even have 4 nominations. And they nominated all 3 of them, even though all 3 of them didn't last longer than 3 months. They all closed well before the Tony Awards. So even the winner wasn't open at the time of the Tony Awards. And the winner was Hallelujah Baby, starring Leslie Uggams. And she was wonderful. She won, I think she won the Tony. The show was not wonderful. In fact, it was pretty bad. I remember 2 songs from it, but the plot, I didn't care. Let's put it that way. And it still won Best Musical. And then the next year, there were like 8 new musicals, and 3 of them should have won Best Musical. And so they got screwed. It's like, it's important.
I know that's always a thing. And like, all you can think of is, oh, they're gonna have a great national tour.
Yeah, that's it.
Like, it's unfortunate. They'll just be nominees, but they will have a great national.
Well, hopefully, but it's hard. Where the business is really changing. We should get into if we have any predictions for 24. Any thoughts of the world of theater?
Well,
silence. That says it all.
Crickets.
Yep.
So there's a new musical called Crickets. I hear it's going to be really good.
Quick, let's write it. We only have 1 show on Broadway to compete. Let's get it up. I'm predicting much more of the same. We're going to find a lot of nonprofits still closing. Others will be combining efforts with other nonprofits to share expenses and ideas because they still can't raise enough money to do what they think they ought to be doing. That's not, again, not everybody. There are always exceptions. But I think we're going to find the field of nonprofit regional theaters across the country dwindling for 1 more year, at least. I hope I'm wrong, but that's my prediction. Broadway will continue to support the big hits, Wicked, Hamilton, Lion King, and
Book of
Mormon, and the other shows will continue to have respectful runs but lose their money for at least another year. Because our audiences are looking for a sure thing, and a Disney park, experience, and the big hits are the big hits. Again, that's a prediction that I really hope I'm wrong. I really, really do. Again, let's put the word out there. Anybody who wants to invest in new works and the development of new works, Darnell has a theater company. I have a theater company. We already have the works in the works. Yeah. They're already there. You can read them. You can check them out. But we need to hear from you. We need money. Everybody needs money.
That's true, and it's not even the company I work for.
Right? Shush! You're not supposed to say that.
Well, I mean, we have theater companies, and I'm not even talking about the one I work for.
Right.
Yes, I I have seen this year a digital theater subscription that it has a limited capacity, and from what I gather, it allows for a digital viewing of the current season. And I really do think that theaters have to think beyond the classical, traditional way of running a theater company. I do think that when your house is dark, there's something that you could be doing in there that could actually, generate revenue. And we have to figure out what that is. And it doesn't have to be, let's bring somebody else in to use it as a thing. It's like, if you're calling yourself a community, you have to be more open to doing more than just what you do in here. And so I think I would love to see virtual stages.
I think you know what, my only qualification to what you're saying is that is a worthy hope and dream. And again, as we're trying to predict what may happen in real life, I see very few companies. There are very few companies with visionaries right now. And I can guess why. I don't want to blame anybody in any particular position. I don't know the inner workings of most of these theaters, but they seem to be stuck in an old concept of what a nonprofit theater ought to be doing. And I'm going to take it another step. On December 30th of this past year, 2023, through the first week or so of January 2024 that we're in, there are a minimum of a dozen shows that are closing. Minimum. I think it's a lot more. I haven't actually added them up, but I did see a list that went on, and they weren't all, not all of them are closing right after New Year. They didn't close after New Year. Some of them made it a week or two into January. That's common. That is the standard way it works. January, perhaps because of the weather, is awful for theater. So we now have a lot of empty theaters. Why aren't we doing anything? You said that. When you're dark, what should you be doing with your space, with the talents that are creating things? You don't have to lose money from the shows that are making money. You just have to use the dark time to do the next step. And if it is filming, videotaping, recording for an audio play, doing readings, putting them on video or not, streaming or paying the money through the unions to do it on a more, like Hamilton did, a more filmed version. All of those are possibilities. If your theater company isn't thinking about some of those ideas, what are you doing? And they cost money, but you can't raise money for the old stuff.
But you can't hide behind the fact that they just cost money.
I agree.
You have to think about, okay, they cost money, but you, at this moment, while you're saying they cost money, you don't know the dollar amount, and you're still just standing still.
That's it.
And so you need to think about how much you could do before you even need that money. It's like, because remember, if you break it down, however much your theater costs per month, you're wasting that per day if nothing is going on in your space. And so,
it's just worth saying. Cheer for your thoughts. I really do, and I hope. I'm not. I absolutely would love to see more of that, and that doesn't discount that you put on live theater. It's an addition. It's right?
Absolutely
right.
Yeah.
All right.
Anyway, that's the business.
It sure is.
Theater. Working title. We still haven't found one. I'm Darnell Radford.
I'm Mitch Weiss. Maybe we have to use the term Hamilton or Wicked in our in our title. Maybe that will help us get more viewers or listeners. Excuse me.
Until it actually reaches the theater.
There you go.
All right. We'll see you in the theater.
And happy 2024, everybody.
Woo! Shh! Unwrap your candy. Thank you for listening. Tune in next time for another episode of The Business of Theater, a working title, with Darnell Radford and Mitch Weiss. Subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. Share the podcast with a friend, colleague, or give us some social media love. This podcast is an Emory production. Visit us online at em3ry.com/TBOT. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at em3ryotm.